So for one thing, you said something that was pure gold that we really need to emphasize. You used cohorts, and that's so important. And every business should be doing this on a regular basis. That instead of doing an analysis just of the customer base as a whole, we really want to break it down based on cohorts. And again, this is a word that sometimes leads to confusion. A lot of people use the words cohorts and segments interchangeably. We want to draw a clear distinction between them. So when we talk about cohorts, we're talking about groups of customers who were acquired at the same time or through the same channel or through the same program, but mostly time. So let's look at the customers that we acquired in 2019 and those we acquired in 2018 and 17 and 16. And let's do a separate analysis for each batch of customers. Let's understand the RFM, the lifetime value. Let's understand the 80-20 rule for each different groups of customers based on when we acquired them. So that's really important, and every business should be doing that. And then once we understand what things look like within a cohort, that's where the 80-20 comes in. Let's now start to look across the cohorts to say, as we acquire each subsequent batch of customers, are they getting a little bit better or are they getting a little bit worse than the ones that we acquired before? So let's really understand the nature of the cohorts. So as we're out there doing all of our marketing and product development stuff, that's going to be a gauge to say if we're doing it well, that if we can manage to kind of maintain or even improve value across the cohorts of customers, yay. So before we even start getting into those details about what makes the customers different from each other, let's first do a cohort level analysis. And that's going to be extremely valuable. And it should be just a regular part of every company's operations. And so, I make a big deal about it. Again, I'm not trying to push these things, but I love the idea of a customer base audit. So we need to be looking at our customer base, again, in a rigorous, accountable way. And it's the cohort that's kind of almost the main building block of that. Then we can start drilling down and say, okay, well, what makes those swans different than those ugly ducklings? Maybe it is demographics. It isn't as often it isn't demographic as often as you think it might be. And even when it is, it's very often transient. Like for this cohort, it could be there was certain demographic features that distinguish the high value customers, but then it changes with the next one. So demographics tend not to be as enduring, as reliable as you'd like them to be. Very often it's more about acquisition characteristics. Not only when did we acquire you, but how did we acquire you? What's the first product that you bought from us? I mean, that's an amazing indicator right there. That very often, just based on the first product alone, that's a strong indication of whether you're going to be a good customer or a not so good one. Now, of course, it's going to vary from company to company, but I'd rather look for those kinds of behavioral indicators as kind of stronger, longer lasting, and more actionable.
Peter, take an example. Share a case or something. So you have so many examples in your book.
Sure. Well, and so let me talk about it again. So in the customer base audit, we're talking for the most part just about traditional kinds of customer metrics, customer acquisition, repeat purchasing, and retention, and so on. But in chapter 8, we bring back the product dimension, and we say, let's look at our products, not through the lens of how many units we sell, because we know which are the best-selling products and which ones we don't sell a lot of, but through the lens of what's the value of the customers who buy those products. And in many, many cases, in fact, I'm going to say most of the time, the products that we sell the most of are actually going to be appealing to lower value customers. It's the 80. It's the majority of those light buyers who tend to be buying the more popular products. Whereas the products that distinguish the high value customers are going to be smaller. They're going to be nichier as we start to rationalize the product line. Cut some of the stock keeping units out of our product line. So let's get rid of the low sellers. But if some of those low sellers are the things that distinguish the high value customer, whoa, we better not touch those. In fact, we need to double down on those kinds of products. So looking at products through the lens of customer value is extremely important. And unfortunately, companies that do that tend to be more exception than rule. And once again, I don't care how big your firm is. That kind of analysis is very, very easy to do. In fact, for a small firm, it actually might even be easier because you know who those customers are. If you're operating just one small store and you know the people as they walk in and out, and you know what they buy, it should become apparent that those customers who you love and who love you have different buying patterns. Not just they buy more often, but they buy different stuff than the customers who come less often. That's an essential part of business.